Reid Bowering, thanks for taking some time to join me on the Dragons Athletic Podcast. How you doing, man? 2020, you get one more year thanks to COVID. How are you feeling going into your senior season?
I'm feeling great. Feeling very grateful to have this opportunity. I know when things kind of, you know, the pandemic broke out in March last year, or this past, a few months ago, I never thought I'd be playing college lacrosse again. So I'm just excited to have this opportunity.
Well, a lot of stuff has happened since then, including you getting drafted to the NLL, and we'll get there. But before we get to where you are at present day, I kind of want to take us back to the beginning with Reid Bowering. Let's go back to Coquitlam, British Columbia in Canada, where you grew up. Talk to me about what it's like being a kid there, growing up from that area of the world. Not just sports, but kind of what your life was like in those early years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a smaller town near Vancouver, which everyone kind of knows about, which is a big city. It's about like 30, 40 minutes out from there. Big on sports, big on hockey, lacrosse, which I played both growing up. I would say it's kind of a sports town. Really lacrosse, though. A lot of lacrosse players from Coquitlam have had success, both in college and in the pro league. So, that city kind of is known for producing players like that. Outside of sports, it's got a lot of restaurants. It's just a nice area to hang out. Lots of green, lots of trees, much like all of British Columbia. So it's a pretty nice city to be around, and I love being there in the summers and when I was growing up.
And you mentioned that kind of the balance between lacrosse and hockey. I know for you, you played both up until high school. So what was the decision-making process for you in terms of pursuing one over the other for college and then eventually for professional athletics, right? What was the mindset, or take me through that process of deciding whether or not you wanted to go for hockey versus lacrosse at a higher level?
Yeah, I mean, I love both, and I mean, I still love hockey now, and I miss it a lot, but I kind of had to take a look at my future, like, am I making it to the NHL? Probably not. So with lacrosse, I could get an education. Ultimately, I think I do love lacrosse more than hockey, just, playing the sport and watching it. But yeah, I made that decision based off of my future. I think I could get education out of lacrosse. And I mean, I love playing it anyway. So I think that's the right decision in the end.
Well, you mentioned, growing up right outside Vancouver in Coquitlam, you end up going to college at Drexel, which is on the opposite side of this continent. So, a lot different. Philadelphia being a city, a lot far away from the natural environment that you are back home. So what were the deciding factors for you in your college process that brought you out to Philadelphia and ultimately, for you to decide to become a Dragon?
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with the coaches, the program history, and the players who had been there before who I kind of knew of, who were from Coquitlam, like Ben McIntosh, Robert Church, Cole Schaefer, even Marshall King, who was there while I was there. Just knowing that they had gone there, had success, Canadians had success at Drexel, that was like the biggest factor. I honestly didn't look too much into the city itself before choosing, but, I love Philly, and, thank God, because I would have hated to go to a city that I didn't like, but Philly, I love it so much. It's such a cool city, so different from what I'm used to. So I've been able to explore so many new things over these past 4 years. Eat cheesesteaks like crazy. It's been a great time. I love Philly.
What's been your favorite place, favorite spot to go grab a cheesesteak?
Uh, Honestly, in the Reading Terminal, Molly Malloy's, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best one I've had for sure. But I've tried a bunch. I've tried all Geno's, and
Of course.
yeah, I've tried all.
You got to get there before you go back
Yeah.
to Vancouver. That just makes sense. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you mentioned someone you knew from the area in Vancouver, Cole Schaefer. You get here, your first year here is his senior season, right? So what's it like having a relationship with him on the team that first year, knowing that, okay, here's somebody from same area of the world I'm coming from. How did that help you in that first year at Drexel?
Yeah, I mean, it made me feel more comfortable. I mean, it's good always to have like a friend who's a senior, when you're going as a freshman, you don't really know anyone, especially the older guys, it can be tough. So it's just nice kind of having like an in, and just, it helped me feel more comfortable on the team. Also, I talked to him before I even came to Drexel. We played on the same team that summer before, or 2 summers before I came to Drexel. And, he was a great resource for me to ask questions about the program, what it's like in the city. And yeah, he just made things a lot more comfortable for me, which I think affected how I played.
Well, you were comfortable on the field from the beginning of your career on. I mean, you jump out to a great start. You're selected to the CAA all-rookie team. So for you, things are rolling on the field. where do you give the credit for that, right? How did you get off to such a great start in your college athletic career?
Yeah, I mean, I think it had to do with, just how much I got so much better, I think, from when I first stepped on the field in September in practice, my freshman year to when the season actually started. And I had never practiced, 5, 6 days a week. I never lifted, 4 to 5 times a week before. So I think during that period, that my first year, there was such a period of growth as a player and just like as an athlete, which I really think helped. And just I've never had been in a situation where I could go to the field or the gym whenever I wanted. So having that at Drexel was huge. I think I improved so much as a player. I was more confident, and that really helped me out my first year right away.
Well, you burst onto the scene as a player. Let me get into a little bit of the student aspect of it. How are you balancing athletics with your academics in that first year, and maybe going into your second year? How are you finding that balance early on at Drexel, and what were some resources that were helpful to you in those first couple of years?
I mean, definitely the math tutoring center helped me out a ton. But I mean, I came in to college knowing like I had, kind of something special where I could come from Canada, go get a university experience in the States, which isn't too common. So, I was taking everything really seriously in the classroom. I wanted to get an education. I felt Drexel had a great, academic record. So I was trying to utilize, every resource I had, planning ahead, having a schedule. I'm pretty paranoid about those things, kind of overkill with to-do lists, which I think helped me out. But yeah, just having so many resources like tutoring was really the main thing.
And then adjustment wise, in terms of the culture, right? Coming from a different side of the continent, a different country, long did it kind of take for you to get used to things here in America, in Philadelphia, versus being back home?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice too much of a difference. I think some of the lingo for sure, but I mean, that wasn't anything that was too challenging, just more kind of funny. But ultimately, I think, Canada and the States are pretty similar. There were just like little things that were different, but it was cool to experience those different things, like how crazy you guys are about sports and football. Whereas in Canada, like we have pro teams, but we're not, as invested in our teams like the Vancouver Canucks. Like they're not the same as the Eagle fans. So that
Right.
stuff is cool for me to see, and I think grow as a person because I got to experience all these different things that I was never used to. But nothing was too difficult, which I liked.
Well, you mentioned football and the Eagles. One, have you become a Birds fan because of your time in Philly? And two, what was it like being in that Super Bowl? Being in the city for that. What are your memories of being around this city when things went crazy?
Yeah, well, so yeah, I never had a football team to be a fan of here in Vancouver or Coquitlam. So I definitely became a Birds fan. I'm not your typical Birds fan who's crazy going to every tailgate, but I'll root for them if they're on the TV for sure. But that Super Bowl win was honestly one of the most like vivid memories that I have of being in Philly. Just that night when they won, everyone going crazy, us going downtown in the middle of the night. It was cold, but you couldn't feel how cold it was. Everyone was yelling. It was so much fun and a night I'll never forget. And then the Super Bowl parade as well. It's such a cool experience. I'm so happy to be there during that time.
Well, that was an awesome moment for the pro teams in Philly. But for you guys, mounting success as you're progressing throughout your career, so is the program. Your junior year in 2019, which, a year and a half ago now, seems so recently. You're the 4 seed going into the CAA tournament. You got UMass in the opening round, and you upset them. They're one of the top-ranked teams in the nation. So take us to that moment, right? Maybe the locker room before the game or the thoughts leading up to the CAA tournament. What was the mindset of the team approaching that game as you go into what would become a big upset and really an identity victory for your program?
Yeah, I mean, we were the 4th seed, but we never really felt like we had played a game that was really like to our full potential. And like we knew we had the players, our starting attack was loaded. Our middies were great. And like, call mailman guys were like breaking out their shell at the perfect time, really stepping up. Our defense was starting to click and our goalie Ross was doing great. So I really felt like a great time. And it was a great time for us to really break out and have our best game of the year, which it was. And I mean, I just think we all felt like, we made the tournament. We were the 4th seed. We just squeaked in there just because of one win. But now we're here. Let's make the most of it and let's, take it to the number 1 seed, which we know we could beat because we had a close game with them that year already. And then obviously it didn't work out in the finals, but I think we learned a lot as a team, and I felt like we were going to be better the next year until obviously COVID happened. But yeah, no, that was a great step forward I think for our program, and we're looking to build off that.
Well, and one final point on the finals. That was a close game as well with Towson, just a 2-goal game. So, with that being said, what was the not maybe the recovery or just the ideas that you guys discussed in days following, right? Knowing like we were just on the precipice of going all the way in the conference tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because there's just such little annoying things like little turnovers, that we should have had, or just some simple missed passes. Like I've watched that game maybe 3 times since then or more, and I just like it's frustrating because like it's not like we couldn't have beat them at all. They're just little mistakes like mental slips that we had that would have changed the whole dynamic of that game, and we probably would have won if we did that. And obviously we could say what if all the time, but I think now moving forward we just got to watch that, learn from that, and then apply it now to our practice in our games moving forward this year.
Well, I'm sure you guys use that as motivation in the offseason going into
Yeah.
this 2020 campaign. So maybe for you, that senior class, the guys who are returning, what was not just the mindset, but the approach, right? How often were you guys working out in the offseason? What was the communication like, right? What was the mindset going into the 2020 campaign?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a group chat, and obviously, guys are dispersed out, throughout the whole, North America with me, and as our Canadians. But we have a group chat where, we're sending photos of, working out to each other to motivate each other. Kind of just in one way proving that you're working out over the summer in the off season, but also just a fun way for the team to stay connected. Because in past years, I found that the group chat kind of dies down when we're not together, and it almost feels like you're not a team because we're not physically together. Whereas, I play in a club team in Coquitlam. We're together all the time throughout the entire season and off season sometimes. So you guys can still connect. So that way we really used, our group chat to motivate each other and prove that we're ready for this 2020 year, which obviously got disrupted.
Well, you guys came out 3-3 start, and in your last game, you upset, a ranked team, Villanova. That's on March 8th. So at that point in the season, Reid, you have 20 goals to your name. You're on fire individually. The team looks great. How are you guys feeling, and how are you personally feeling about your chances at that CAA title this 2020 season?
Oh yeah, I was feeling great. I felt like that was a game where stuff finally started to click, and I'm pretty sure we practiced that. I forget what day it was that we kind of heard that the season wasn't going to happen. I'm pretty sure we had a practice that day already, that week, Monday, and like things were feeling good. Everyone's like in a good mood, ready for this game against Binghamton. And I remember like our coaches even saying, like our O coach Boyle, just saying how like this feels right, like this is the team, like we got the mindset and the skill. And then yeah, no, we were pumped and thought we were gonna go all the way for sure, which we always think, but it just felt real that year.
So then take me kind of through that, right? The next couple of days into the weeks that eventually became what this long 2020 year has been, right? When do you guys find the news, and then how does things progress from there?
Yeah, well, I think the Ivy League canceled their season, and we're like, okay, well, that's not good for us. How everyone start doubting that we're gonna have a season. And then I think what really set it off, that kind of people knew before we really got word of it officially, was that the NBA season said that they were stopping, and we're like, well, if the NBA is stopping because of this, I'm sure college athletics is going to stop too. And then sure thing, next day we had a meeting instead of practice, and everyone I think knew what was coming.
Right.
And obviously we were disappointed. We had no idea what to do. I had to pack up all my stuff and leave over the next couple of days, book a flight. It's pretty sad because we didn't know that we'd have this extra year. Some guys obviously still weren't even able to come back for this year in my senior class, which was sad. So it was pretty emotional, and guys were sad that something we thought could be so great was coming to an end so abruptly. But now we're in a completely different spot, and I think we're all super excited and not going to take anything for granted this year coming up.
Well, for you, you're granted that 5th year. You return along with a couple other key players. So when do you first, what's that decision-making process for you, right? When did you decide, all right, I want to return, I want that 5th year at Drexel, and how does everything fall into place from there?
Yeah, it was a tough decision. Like I knew obviously I wanted my last year of college lacrosse back and wanted to play that I had this opportunity. But I was also preparing that whole year that I was going to be done with school, and I was ready for real life and wanted to get ahead and stuff, and was preparing for that. So it wasn't easy to make that decision. I also have a great girlfriend back home that we've been doing long distance for 4 years. So that was tough, but she luckily was like, no, like, you got to do this. Like, it's 1 year, you can go to grad school, it's going to be worth it in the long run. So I'm very appreciative of that, for her support. And it's just, yeah, it was a tough decision, but I'm glad I made this decision, and I'm happy for this year.
So this fall, a little bit different for you, obviously unique in a couple of ways. I think the first way that I want to talk about is the NLL Draft. Second pick overall, you get selected by Vancouver, and that's not too far from your home in Coquitlam. I know that you haven't committed, obviously, yet to Vancouver because you're a graduate student. You're going into your final season, but tell me a little bit about that situation, the emotions of getting selected in that draft by a team so close to home.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a cool experience. I mean, that's something, like, getting drafted is something that I'm sure every athlete dreams about. And being from Coquitlam, where a lot of guys have gone to play, professional lacrosse, it's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and was super excited to, be able to do. Obviously, getting drafted that high is pretty cool as well. Yeah, no, I was just super excited, super thankful for every coach that and player that's helped me along the way. And yeah, I mean, I want to focus on Drexel now, but I'm excited for the future as well.
Where were you when you got the call, and who did you talk to immediately as soon as you got that news?
Yeah, so I was at my girlfriend's house, watching it virtually. I was on a Zoom call, and then I got word of what was happening, and then I got my phone just started lighting up. I got a bunch of texts. I got phone calls. I was about to do an interview with the NLL, and then the captain of the Vancouver Warriors just calling me. And I'm like trying to listen, but I'm also trying to hear if I'm supposed to be on the interview. I got the head coach calling me. I'm just like trying to talk, but I can't really understand what they're even saying. So I'm sure I wasn't making sense to them. So much was going on, but it's just such an exciting time. And I was just, yeah, had a great night. It was a lot of fun.
When did it all set in for you? Because I'm sure it's overwhelming at first, right? But for you, when does the wave of emotions set in and you realize, like, wow, this is real? I just got drafted to Vancouver.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, for anything like that, it kind of takes me a day, like kind of a good sleep afterwards, like the next day. Even with like any other big accomplishments that I've had in the past, it's always taken like kind of a night to sleep on for it to really set in. So like the next day, I mean, obviously that night we celebrated and everything, but the next day I was like, wow, that was something pretty special in my life that I'm going to cherish forever.
Well, and then looking at the fall for 2020, right? This is a very different situation than most previous years for you and your teammates at Drexel. I know you aren't on campus. A lot of guys aren't on campus given the situation. So, what have been the obstacles this year in comparison to previous seasons? Not being able to meet as a team on campus and get into the routine that you're accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is just, connecting as a team and gelling, where because we're not all together. I think about 24 people are staying at home and the rest are in Philly. So, that's a big chunk of people who, and a lot of them being freshmen, don't get to meet their teammates. Like, they've never really met them in person as like a member of that team. So I think that's pretty tough. I'm sure like in January, they're going to be feeling a little bit nervous to meet people when usually they've had 3 months to bond with all these guys. So I think that's kind of the biggest obstacle. I know, like, personally, like as a captain and our other captains, Jimmy Coyda and Colin Mailman, we wanted to make sure that our team still felt connected while we're not really together. But like people are busy. It's weird times. That who knows what people got going on in their lives. Like I know I was super busy with school. We just had like our first kind of only players meeting a week ago. And we're like almost halfway through the term, so it's definitely different. That's going to be tough to kind of gel, but I think we're finally getting into like a bit more of a routine. The guys in Philly are practicing more, which is good, but definitely being connected as a team, I think that's our biggest obstacle. Where some teams are practicing full pads this fall, so I think that's something we really got be concerned about.
Well, going into the winter time now, right? Obviously, you haven't had the advantage of being together as a squad, but what are some maybe individual things you're trying to preach to the younger guys to do on their own so that, come January, February, when the season starts to roll around, you guys are prepared to the best of your ability, obviously given a difficult situation with COVID?
Yeah, I mean, definitely just getting in the weight room as much you can. I mean, we've been kind of like I said before, sending photos of us working out, and lucky like this group of freshmen and the sophomores too that who are staying home that I've seen, kind of a separate group chat for the people at home. They've been sending lots of photos. It looks like they're pretty committed to this process that we've kind of set forward for our team, and you know they're looking pretty big in the weight room as well, which is nice to see. And they're shooting wherever they can. A lot of them got like home gyms set up, which is good because not all gyms are open. So, I think things are looking pretty good that way. Yeah.
Going into your last year, you get this graduate student season, you're 25 goals shy of the program record. Now, how much are you thinking about that? Is that present on your mind? And how much, one, is that motivating you? And two, would it mean to you to break the program record for goals scored?
Yeah. I it's not my main focus at all. My main focus is winning a CAA. I know it's in the back of my mind and I know I could do it, but I think how I like to think about these type of things, like, team accomplishments versus personal accomplishments. I think the personal ones are going to come if I'm putting my best self forward for our team. And I don't think they would come, and I wouldn't feel right about it if I went about the season just trying to break a record and not being concerned about our team's success. So, like, I'm not too worried about it. If it happens, it happens. I think if we have a good year as a team, it will happen. And that's what I'm aiming to do with my workouts and my practices and trying to get better as a player. So that's kind of how I view it.
Knowing this is going to be your last season, no matter what are the things you're going to cherish during this final go round? Maybe some things that, as you look back on the last 4 years, you're realizing, man, this is going to be the last time. And for you, it's a second time doing this as a repeat senior.
Yeah.
But what are some of those things for you that you're going to miss about being on campus at Drexel, being around the guys, being in the atmosphere that was, being a Drexel student athlete?
Yeah, honestly, it's like everything because, I've loved that city and that team and that program and the school so much. So, when I left in March, I was thinking about all those things that I'm going to miss. And now I'm taking that with me. And I know when I get back in January, I'll be soaking it all in, like, just how campus looks, our locker room, being with the guys after practice, after a game, listening to music, just joking around, just hanging out with all the guys and, team dinners. Those are always so much fun, and like going to hotels, which might be different this year, but just all those team experiences that we get that are on the field and off the field, I'm really going to cherish all those moments.
And then for you personally, right, when the season's over and you're out at Drexel, what are kind of the goals for you getting out of school finally, being out in the real world? I know you might consider playing professionally a little bit, but outside of lacrosse, what are your interests and what are you looking to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know I say outside lacrosse, but I love lacrosse. That's my passion. I would love to, start my own kind of lacrosse business, whether that's helping people with recruitment or some product company. I want to stay definitely like invested in the game because I love it so much, and I don't want to go to a job that I hate every day. I gotta do something I love. Um, yeah, so I'll definitely be staying around the game, maybe coaching, who knows, but I'll definitely be invested in lacrosse still.
Sounds awesome, man. Well, one final question. We've talked about how kind of Drexel's helped you in your lacrosse career and built you up as a player, but I kind of want to know, as a student athlete and as a person, right? What's your experience as a Drexel student athlete been like in terms of how it's benefited you as an individual person moving forward for the rest of your life?
Yeah, well, I mean, just coming from like a smaller town and then coming to like a bigger city in Philadelphia, meeting all these people, all these Americans who I never really interacted with before. I just feel like, I grew so much as a person by meeting these people, going to class, going to practice, and just I had all these opportunities to just grow as a person. I feel like people in general, when they're out of their comfort zone and like they experience things that they're not used to, that's the best way to grow. And I just think, over these last 4 years, I've seen tremendous growth, personally. And I'm just so grateful and thankful for having the opportunity I did to go to Drexel and meet all the people and be in that city.
One last thing, if you could give a final piece of advice or a good piece of advice to somebody who's considering coming to Drexel, being a student athlete, what would that be?
I mean, you're gonna get a great, support system when you come here. So really just take advantage of that because people want your success. So if you're willing to put in some work and, cherish every moment and utilize all your resources, you're gonna be totally fine and find great success. So just put in that time to, maybe go the extra mile because you're gonna have a great support system where other programs might not.
Reid Bowering, one of the best to pick up a lacrosse stick at Drexel. Thanks so much for taking the time today to be on the podcast. Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.